Listen to the Vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I'm very happy to welcome John Verrico here with me today. He is a speaker and a leadership coach. And from what I understand, you've done quite a bit more. So tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, thanks. Before I finally found myself in the communication field where I spent the past 42 years, I kind of did a little bit of everything. And I mean, little of everything. I was a janitor. I was a bartender. I was a stand-up comic. I was a journalist. Started out as an electronics technician. Went to college for electronics after high school, and just kind of bounced around to a bunch of different stuff. And then I got to a realization where I needed to figure out what I was going to do in life. When I went on the electronics path, I thought that was going to be my direction. And I found that after working for a couple of years in the field, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed maybe I didn't. I was good at it. I was good at the work, but I just didn't like it. What I found I enjoyed more was helping to cross-train my fellow technicians when I was a good problem solver. And as I found solutions to problems, I wanted to share those. And so I wrote training manuals and I did training for them. And I realized that interaction was what I enjoyed more. I went back to school for journalism and then started as a freelance journalist and did that for a while. But I couldn't get a solid job because I was unreliable. I couldn't get up in the morning. So I was used to doing a lot of night stuff. Like I said, I was a bartender. I was a roadie with a band. I was a disco dance instructor, man.
Oh, no.
Yes. I know you're a classic rock guy, but the disco era was it for me. And so I really kind of got into that. And actually, that's how I found myself, to be honest. That's when I finally first got some confidence. And we can go into that as we go into the conversation. But ultimately, I went in. I couldn't find a regular, steady job on the outside. So I went into the Navy and joined the Navy as a Navy journalist, went into public affairs and spent the past 42 years between Navy and state level government and federal government agencies doing public affairs and communications. And I just retired out of that.
That's nice, right?
Yeah. So all the stuff that I learned about communicating with each other and how that impacts ability to be a leader just evolved into a series of training programs and coaching programs that I do now as a leadership and communication coach and trainer. So that's how it kind of ultimately evolved. Weird path.
So what is Torch?
Torch is my acronym for those things that keep us motivated. The things that we need to interact with each other. Torch is what brings that light to the darkness in our lives. So it's my acronym, and it stands for trust, opportunity, respect, communication, and humanity. And when we have those things, we can be motivated. We don't feel like we're left alone in the dark. We have a trusted relationships with other people when we're felt like we're given the same opportunities that other people have. The opportunity to try, the opportunity to fail. It's still opportunity. When we're respected as an individual, we're respected for whatever background and things that we bring to the table. When we are openly communicated with and communicate openly with others. And most importantly, when we acknowledge the fact that we are human beings, which means we have flaws as well, but we also have lives outside of the work situation, outside of whatever relationship. We are whole human beings. And so all of those things together help us to kind of keep going in moments of darkness. And so that's the foundation of the underlying foundation of everything that I teach and speak about. And that's why my company is called Share Your Fire.
I was reading your bio and I had to chuckle a little bit because I saw under speaker, it said nerdy speaker.
Well, yeah, I'm kind of a nerd.
Do you?
That's my phone number too.
Oh, that's your phone number.
Yeah. It's 240-257 nerd.
So do you incorporate that into when you go out and speak?
Absolutely. So, people have different perspectives of what a nerd is, right? And I guess I was kind of a nerdy kid, but I wasn't. I'm going to go back to my high school years and even before, but I was a small kid.
Mm-hmm.
I was the undersized kid in school that got picked on by the bullies all the time. As you can probably tell, I'm kind of an extrovert. I like to be out there talking, but because every time I drew attention to myself, I got beat up. I was kind of an extrovert being forced to be in an introvert's body. I found, the commonalities I had with other kids was comic books, so that had that little bit of nerdiness going on. And I wanted a superpower because I figured, well, the bullies won't beat me up if I have a superpower. But, let's face reality, right? People don't really get those superpowers. We don't get bit by radioactive spiders and stuff like that. You could tell it was a Marvel guy. But what I found my inspiration in was in monster movies. And primarily the classic monster movies. And that goes back to the torch too, because in the old monster movies, the monsters were always in the dark, right? The monsters represented things that we were afraid of, things we didn't understand, things we didn't know about. And how we fought them off was we got out there with a torch. And when you shed the light on the monster and you realize what it is and you see what it is and you can scare them off and all that other good stuff, that is kind of the inspiration. And I realized that all I needed was a well-lit torch and I could scare off the monsters. So the little guy could still win. And so what was that torch? That torch was that motivation inside of me that kept me going no matter what else was going on. And that's the whole kind of foundation there. But yeah, I incorporate stuff about classic monster movies. I talk about, Frankenstein and the Frankenstein monster being really nothing more than a special needs child who was neglected. And so
that way.
Right. Yeah. You think about all of these different things. You look at all these classic monster movies and you realize that the monsters were really of our own creation. And also realize that, we face monsters every day in our lives, whether that is some problem situation. Your car won't start. There's a monster. Right. You got a crappy boss at work, or, a lousy coworker, or, somebody in your family is, going off on a rampage. There's all kinds of things that happen in our lives. And all of those things can be defeated if we just keep our heads together and just shine the light on what the problem really is.
I think a lot of it, we need to find more common ground.
Man, Kyle, common ground. The thing is, we have more in common with each other than we have different than each other. But we have a tendency in society to isolate our differences and to categorize people by our differences and to eliminate people from ourselves and from our lives because of their differences. We do this, you do this by just, it's natural instinct. It's that preservation instinct that comes in when you're walking down the street and somebody's walking towards you on the same side of the street. In just a matter of 3 seconds, you're making a decision if you're going to keep walking in the same direction and make them step to the side, if you're going to step to the side and let them pass, or if you're going to cross the street and avoid them altogether. And you've made this decision because you've looked at this person and you've looked at all the things that make them different about you. And then you're trying to determine what those differences are and what threat they may pose to you or not, or whether you're better than them or not. And you'll either stay your course, you'll give them right of way, or you'll just completely avoid them.
Something I really enjoy is when I meet someone new and when we find that we have something in common, and when you get to listen to whatever they have to say about it, they kind of light up and they get excited and they just keep going and going. And then when you can say, "Oh yeah," and relate to it, it just brings you closer. It's like when you mentioned monsters. I loved Godzilla movies when I was growing up.
There you go. You know what's funny? I am currently reading the original Godzilla novels that were finally translated from Japanese. I just found them literally on Amazon about 2 weeks ago. And I said, I've got to see what this is about. And it's actually the novel from which the original Godzilla movie was made from.
From my understanding, it was their way of coping with World War II.
And the devastation from the atomic weapons.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Mm. So you liked Frankenstein. I enjoyed Frankenstein, and of course Dracula. I watched The Creature from the Black Lagoon, but wasn't one of my favorites.
I love the creature.
But I used to like the TV show, the sci-fi shows back then, and
Yeah.
one of my favorites was Ultraman.
Oh, well, see, yeah, you like the Japanese stuff. You like all
Mhm.
the kaiju stuff. Yeah. Ultraman was fun too.
And I was so excited when I found it on DVD. I thought I would never get to see it again.
I'm trying to remember the other one. It was Jet Jaguar. He was another Japanese superhero, very similar to Ultraman.
And Spectre Man.
I don't remember that one.
You don't remember Spectre Man? Look him up.
I will. Oh yeah,
They,
because if I'm missing out on something, there's something wrong there.
and they did look quite a bit alike.
Yeah.
So they might have been made by the same people. I don't know.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it.
And of
It was all
course,
great stuff. But I loved the Wolfman.
oh yeah.
Uh, the Wolfman was very inspirational to me because he was a monster that didn't want to be a monster. And everything he was doing during his normal time was trying to prevent, the bad stuff from happening. So he was kind of a cool character. But the one that actually inspired me the most as a kid was King Kong.
Oh yeah.
The original classic.
Yeah. I couldn't wait until it came out on television. The old one from, what was it, the 1930s, I think.
33, yeah.
And
Told you I was a nerd.
man, I watched it every time it came on. How did you like, and I know this isn't a monster thing, but going to sci-fi, did you enjoy $6 Million Man?
I did. It was cheesy, but it was fun. $6 Million Man was fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I actually had a brief opportunity to meet Lee Majors once, and
I wanted to be him.
very cool guy. Very cool guy.
I wanted to be Steve Austin.
Yep.
And the Fall Guy.
The Fall Guy. That's another great one.
Actually went to a comic book store and they had the toy that I wanted as a kid and never got it, was the space capsule that opened up and was also the table that they put all of his bionics.
The $6 Million Man. Yep.
Yeah.
I got one of those relatively recently too.
It's right up here on my shelf.
That's awesome. See, my basement is full of my monster and classic toy collection.
Oh, well,
we just moved, so I haven't unpacked it and reset it up yet. But in my old house, a local newspaper called it my demented man cave. It was floor to ceiling, wall to wall, shelves full of classic monster stuff and old TV related toys and stuff from the 60s and 70s.
I want to find the Fonz doll again. Did you ever see that?
Yeah. I actually
had the thumbs that actually went up and down.
Had the thumbs were up. Yep. There was an 8-inch one that Mego put out, and his thumbs were up. And then in the recent years, the Mego toy company kind of resurfaced, and they started putting out these 8-inch action figures again that were the same basic design as they were in the 70s, and they put out a Fonz, but he's got regular hands. The thumb's
Oh
not
no.
up. I'm like, that's
No.
wrong. It's wrong. You got to have the thumbs up. I guess they were figuring they were lucky if if the kids nowadays would know who the Fonz was, let alone whether or not the thumbs were up. So
And see, look how excited we both got talking about these things.
there we go. There we go. Completely. I mean, we've never met before. And all of a sudden, we're bonding over stuff like, old TV shows and monsters and things like that. If we give anyone else a chance, we will find we probably have just as much of a passion or something similar in common with each other. And that's what people just don't do. I love, today is Alien Culture Day, the day that we're recording this.
Really?
Is Alien Culture Day. And I was like, oh, alien culture. That's really cool, man. But really, if you think about it, what it's about is just understanding things that are alien to our own nature and things that are different from us. My wife and I, whenever we do have the opportunity to go on vacation, we like to go on cruises. And on cruises, we find we meet people from all over the world. And no matter what country they're from, no matter what our cultural differences are, no matter what any of our differences are, whether it's our skin, our accent, our language, whatever it is, we find that we can bond with them because we're coming together in a mutually comfortable setting.
Mm-hmm.
We're not being ruled by politics or policies or borders or whatever keeps us apart, and whatever we learn about other people and other cultures and other countries from the news, we realize it's all wrong, because if you can connect with them on a human level, we find that they're just wonderful people.
Mm-hmm.
They're all wonderful people, and we meet them from all over the world, and we've got friends that we've developed, globally, because of the opportunity to interact with them and learn about them. So I fully celebrate Alien Culture Day.
When I was a kid, I was pretty nerdy too. I didn't have a lot of friends that lived close, so I spent a lot of time alone. I had a little brother, but there was a 7-year difference between us, so
Oh, wow.
we didn't really click on a lot of things, So I spent a lot of time like in my room watching television. Television was kind of my friend back then. The neighborhood was a little rough, so you didn't get to play out like you would.
Where did you grow up?
A little place called Baytown, Texas.
Okay.
Yeah, the neighborhood that I was in, it kept getting rougher and rougher as older I got. And don't get me wrong, I went out and played when we could meet up at the field and play baseball or football or whatever. I was out there doing that. But I did spend a lot of time home watching television. And I think because I didn't interact with the other kids as much as I should have, if I found it difficult, to talk to them. And so I did get picked on. I got bullied. I got bullied to the point I didn't want to go to school.
Yeah, I was right
where
with you.
I wanted to end my own life. I finally stood up for myself and found out the bully was more scared than I was. But how do you approach bullying nowadays? Because it's a lot different than what it was back then. I mean, you got social media, and I know that's a huge problem. But how do you approach this?
Cyberbullying is taking things to a whole new level, because the bullies feel more safe because there's not that physical interaction, and they can hide behind the anonymity of social media. And it does make things absolutely brutal. The way that I try to fight it, and the things that I try to work with people on who are experiencing bully relationships, and I'm not just talking about school, because it happens in the workplace. It happens everywhere. And you realize that the people who are doing that bullying behavior as an adult, they're just the bullies in kid who never learned their lesson. And it's not about, oh, maybe getting smacked down, at some point, but it's really, they never really had the opportunity to understand themselves. They're incredibly insecure. And so because of that, they act out and they want to dominate other people because they're insecure in their own selves. So I try to point that out to folks and to help people to understand that no matter what is going on in your life, no matter what you're experiencing, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whatever, no matter hardships you've gone through, whatever failures you've gone through, you still matter. The slightest thing you do can have a fantastic impact on people around you. So what you do matters, and do not let someone else take that away from you. Mm. That was a lesson I had to learn. It took me a while. I mean, we all go through it. I actually, and I tell the story a lot, so I don't want to waste your listeners' time on it because they probably have heard it in a zillion other places. But I joined the wrestling team in high school because I was a lousy athlete, but I wanted to fit in. Mm-hmm. And, I sucked at all the traditional sports. And so I joined the wrestling team. And here I was, I weighed about 88 pounds. I wasn't even 5 foot tall. And I joined the wrestling team in my freshman year, and the coach laughed at me. He's like, "You got to be kidding me, kid. Get in that weight room and go work out." And so I went in the weight room, and there's all the gorillas in there, pumping iron and stuff, and all the kids that would beat me up. I'm like, "Oh, great! You want me to come in with this group?" So I would slither over to the corner where nobody else was looking and paying attention, and I'd get on the leg press, and I'd just sit there on the leg press because I couldn't get near all the other stuff. And I sat on the leg press, and for my hour every day, the coach wanted me in there working out. Well, my legs got huge. I mean, I got these massive Popeye, muscular legs, and my upper body was kind of more like olive oil. So I really, was kind of goofy looking. And so I would, when I get out there on the mat, I had no upper body strength. I couldn't take people down, or I couldn't pin them or anything like that. But my legs were so strong that they couldn't pin me because I could get out from under them. So even though I lost matches by points, I actually won a few by points, but I was unpinnable. And so there was that little thing that I could do that somebody else couldn't. And that little, if each little win we have in our life, we need to take that in and celebrate it and make it part of ourselves. And so that gave me just that little bit of iota of confidence. When I got out of high school and everybody was hitting the discos and everybody else was getting all the dates, it was because they could dance. And I said, I got to learn how to do that. So I taught myself how to dance. I'd watch American Bandstand and Soul Train and all those shows and watch the cool moves. And I'd practice them, with a chair or whatever. And I hung around with a really good looking guy when we go to the clubs, the girls would all be attracted to him, and he can only dance with one at a time. So, I got to, hey, you want to dance with me for this one? And, you can get to Kevin later. And so, every once in a while I'd get a yes, sure. Why not? Let's go. And I'd get out there and dance and I'd bust out my moves. And all of a sudden people went, hey, that was slick. Do that again. And next thing you know, I was teaching people how to dance, and actually became an instructor and was teaching people competition dance. And again, it was something that I could do, something that I could offer people. And I realized that when I was doing that, I was helping people feel better about themselves. It wasn't about me. It really wasn't about the fact that I was a better dancer, because I was making them better dancers. And so I wasn't competing in the competitions. I was getting them ready to compete in the competitions and win the competitions. And they're the ones who were getting the glory. But in the background, I was helping them get there. And that's where I realized where my kind of my mission in life ultimately was going to be to help others, and to help others who were unsure about themselves become more sure about themselves.
when I did interact with the other students, I had to use humor because I guess I was so nervous and I was not really sure of myself. So I joked around. I'd be a goofball, and I'd find more people talk to me when I did that. Is that where you developed your sense of humor?
Yeah, pretty much. It kind of ran in my family too. My grandfather was a vaudevillian.
Oh, wow.
And so he was always telling like really terrible jokes around the house, when I was growing up. But I definitely learned to love and appreciate humor, and I use humor all the time. And yes, I found that if I could laugh at myself, then other people weren't laughing at me; they were laughing with me.
Yeah.
And when somebody wanted to pick on me about something, I could just laugh it off. And so, yeah, that humor became my shield.
Yeah.
And that's what I like to tell people. You got to learn to laugh at yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do things that don't work out. You're going to make mistakes. Laugh them off, learn from them, and move on. I was one of my favorite stories to tell was a flight I was taking from Washington, D.C. to L.A., kind of a longer flight. And and I got in the window seat, and this very beautiful woman traveling alone got in the aisle seat, and nobody got in the middle. This was an automatic conversation starter just to say, hey, we got some elbow room. We got lucky, right? There's like some big giant football player in the middle of us or whatever. And so we started chatting, and I learned that she was 30 years old, and her father kept pushing her to get married. And so he was setting her up on all these dates. Now, she was of Indian heritage. And she was, like I said, she was stunning. And she also spent a lot of time in Australia. So she had the most musical accent. I'm like, you're perfection here. How come your father is setting you up on dates? Is that part of your family tradition or your culture or whatever? I want to understand. And she said, oh no, I'm really, we're a very westernized family. My father doesn't have to do that, but I'm just really very shy. I won't talk to men. And I was like, okay, last time I checked, I'm a dude, and you've been talking to me for the past 4 hours. And she goes, yeah, but if you were some young, good looking guy I'd be interested in, I'd never be able to talk to you.
Gee, thanks.
So what do you do, right? Do you get insulted? Do you take it, as a smack in the face, or do you just laugh it off? And I realized she didn't mean it to be mean. And then it was funny that when she realized what came out of her mouth, and she just she was mortified. She goes, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that. I said, well, you did, but you didn't. I get it. You're right. I'm not in the category of men you'd be interested in, and that's fine. So, of course, as soon as we landed, I called my wife and told her the whole story. And she says, oh, it's so nice to know my hubby is safe. That hurt. I was like, all right. I'd like to be a little jealous, be a little protective, be a little worried.
I think part of my humor came from my grandfather.
You too.
My grandfather had gotten into an accident back in the mid 60s where he was paralyzed from the waist down.
Oh, wow.
But he taught himself to walk. Now, he stumbled when he walked, but he still did. And you imagine this guy has no feeling in his legs whatsoever.
Wow.
But he would still walk.
What an inspiration.
Oh, exactly. And my grandmother had taken him up to the hospital for one of his doctor appointments. And he's going down the hall and he's kind of stumbling a little bit. And this lady came up and asked my grandmother, is he drunk? And my grandpa heard it. Now, some people would get pissed off. My grandpa said,
sure.
I sure wished I was. I'd get over this in the morning.
That's beautiful.
But I love telling that story because he could have been upset. Instead, he
Right.
just joked about it. And I
Yeah.
think we should all approach things like that as well.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. He could have been very bitter.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I get some
Especially since it was from an accident.
right, right.
You know, it's not like something that gradually happened. You know, he was
Mhm.
walking and then it got taken away from him because of an accident. He could have had a completely different attitude.
Exactly. And I think that's why I approach whenever I get comments that people have called me names and said very derogatory things about me in my videos. I take it as a compliment instead of a put down. It's
It
like
is a
that.
compliment because they
Yeah.
took the time to respond. They
Thank
took the
you.
time to react. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, do you
Because
have a web?
if you didn't hit home with something that you said,
Hmm.
they wouldn't have reacted at all.
Exactly.
So yeah, I will take a criticism as a compliment anytime because it tells me that you at least acknowledged it.
Do you usually do corporate or is you're speaking for everyone?
Pretty much for everyone. I spoke recently at a middle school
Mhm.
for kids. I spoke at an HR conference not too long ago. I spoke for an Air Force squadron recently as well on servant leadership. So I'm kind of across the spectrum. No one is safe from me. I do find that because of my experience having spent over 40 years working in government, I find myself relating more to people that are in more of a nonprofit kind of an environment rather than a corporate environment. I still talk to corporate stuff as well, but I really find that a lot of the niche and where the connections happen usually are in like professional associations, um, where everybody might be in the same career field, but they all work for different companies. Like they're all just trying to figure out how do we do this stuff. You know, there's a bunch of medical people. You know, I was talking at a pain clinic, and everybody was kind of in that realm of being a healer, right? And they just needed a little bit of motivation to keep going because they realize, you know, the more they're working with these people, and they, you know, let's face it, people are they're sick. They don't feel well. They're cranky. They're you know, and then they don't listen to you when you say you got to go change your lifestyle. You got to quit smoking. You got to back off of this, and they're not doing it, and so they come back again because they're still sick, and it drives people crazy. So I love talking to folks like that. I'm a problem solver by nature, and so you know I'm not so if what I can do can help your company's bottom line, that's great. But if I can make a better, more motivated workplace and a happier workplace, and you're able to retain your talent and your people aren't kind of undermining your company and providing good customer service, that's a longer term impact than just, you know, making more sales in that particular day. It will have a longer term effect. But yes, I talk with everybody. I'm working now with some one-on-one coaching with different people from different walks of life that just want to learn how to be better speakers. They want to learn how to have better interpersonal communications. One person is looking to, you know, how they can up their game in sales pitches, while somebody else is actually looking to, or one of the clients I wrapped up with recently was just looking to apply for a new job, and they were just nervous as all get out. So we actually practiced the interview process with them.
If people want to get a hold of you, do you have a website? And also, what is your social media?
So I am not hiding out there. I'm all over social media. My website is www.johnverrico.com, spelled just like my name, JOHNVERRICO.com. I'm on Facebook, John Verrico Speaks, on LinkedIn under John Verrico, Instagram, and the website formerly known as Twitter. You can find me as J Verrico.
Yeah. Everybody asks, do I call it Twitter or do I call it X?
Yeah, I like, you know, I kind of like that that the website formerly known as Twitter.
Well, I will put all the links in the description to make it easy for folks to find you. John, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. This has been great. I love getting together and talking with folks and finding those things that we have in common. Like Godzilla and the $6 million man and all that great stuff.
We should do a show where we just talk about all those great things from back in the day.
We can do it.
But thank you again. I also want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, I hope you'll come back. Hit that subscribe button for my regulars. You guys are awesome because you make it possible for me to do this. Until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network